Yes, I do get up at 5:45 to go train, but then I get to connect with Thomas and we get to sit outside and we look at our garden. It's just a question of whether we're appreciating and noticing those moments enough, you know. Yes, I think there's a couple of things that came out of divorce, but it was a shockingly unnerving process.
You're listening to the Fit Mom podcast, and I'm your host, Marisa Tully.
And me, Ash Iavino.
Our conversations on here go beyond fitness, diving into hormones, sleep, stress, biohacking, and the latest science-backed systems.
Our biggest passion is helping ambitious moms like you channel the same drive you bring to your work and family into your own well-being.
Today, I'm joined by Nicola, the founder of Oship, a business that actually started as a favor to friends and has now grown into a trusted logistics partner for some of South Africa's most loved brands. Nicola is a CA turned entrepreneur. She's built partnerships with retailers like Pick n Pay, Takealot, Spar, Wellness Warehouse, all while steering, in your words on LinkedIn, her own ship with heart and grit. Thanks so much for joining me today.
No, it's a pleasure. It's so great to be back.
So I think I wanted to just kick off with asking you will also saying that you've got a lot of stamina. I've known you over the years. We've chatted a lot and been connected through business. You've got stamina when it comes to running business, and I want to know how you keep going, or what's your secret?
I thought about this and I don't know if there's a real secret source. I think a lot of the stamina stems from my own personal standard that I hold myself to, which has always been super high. Like if I look back at my childhood, you know, I had 103% average in matric, and I was very dedicated to my studies, which I now really regret because nobody cares. But sometimes I wish that I can accept a little bit of a subpar vibe for myself, but I just can't. And I think there isn't an option for me to quit. There isn't an option to stop. There isn't an option to just give in. There's always definitely a way around. And I think it's that drive that really translates to stamina in business, in personal, everything.
And would you ever, and have you ever considered it, working for someone else again? Would you ever stop being your own boss?
No. I think the one thing that I've learned in time is that, to me, the most valuable thing we have is time. And that's one thing that I can't buy with money. I always say I will definitely go to my grave a little bit poorer, but I'll go to my grave like time rich, you know. To me, the ultimate version of wealth is to be able to have a slower morning, to be able to pick my son up, to be able to be there for my friends on a whim if they need me, and to be able to drop my life for the people that I love. That to me is real wealth. And I don't see how I could ever get that back in corporate or even, and also like rules, you know, if I have another partner or a boss or something, there's going to be rules, and I struggle with those, so no.
Yeah, I also struggle with that. I think that's why I got into entrepreneurship really early on, is I struggled with someone telling me what to do, but more someone having so much control over my day.
Yeah.
Like clocking into office hours and meetings. But you mentioned slow morning, and I had to laugh because I find I am a contrast as well. I do appreciate like slow mornings, but then
You never get them?
no, you do, but there's the other extreme of periods of stress where it's just go, go, go. And I remember our first podcast, we spoke about that, and I feel like that was in the middle of like everything felt rushed. And entrepreneurship it is. There you do have more control to a sense, but then you're also going on holiday with family, and often, like, I don't know if you're the same, but whipping out, you know, your emails, checking in. So it's quite a contrast being an entrepreneur, because yes, you get flexibility, but then you also strike me as someone who's got this like drive of constantly seeking more.
Yes, I think what we do without realizing it, and maybe if we stop long enough to think about it, it might just look a little bit different. Yes, I do get up at 5:45 to go train, and my son goes to school 7:10. But then when I get back, then I can pause, and it's maybe an 8 to 9 pause and not a slow morning per se. You're still getting up early, but then I get to connect with Thomas and we get to sit outside and we look at our garden and what's the bee shoots doing, So I think it just looks different for us now. It's not the stereotypical thing. And it's just a question of whether we're appreciating and noticing those moments enough,
Totally, because you can have the time right in front of you, but your mind's not there. I often find that with certain periods of stress with work and be sitting in a garden and actually realizing I'm not focused on now. I'm so in my head with work.
Yeah.
Tell me the transition from Simply Granola, because I know so many that are listening remember you and the brand Simply Granola. Like, how did that pivot happen? And then I want to know more about Oship.
So, the pivot was quite organic. While we were doing Simply Granola, we were also picking and packing for some friends in the industry who were in remote places. And then in, what are we now, 25, 24, 23? In 2023, I've always found brands and starting a brand and building a brand very exciting. So I thought, oh, well, let me just slap a logo, onto this thing that I'm doing. And that's what I did. I made a Canva logo over my lunch break one day and I called it Oship, and it was fun and it was different. It wasn't so aesthetically pleasing like Simply Granola was. There's a lot of freedom and fun, I think, in that as well. And I really think, with Simply Granola, we saw the decline in luxury goods being purchased as far back as 2022. So I knew that the decline is something that's going to become a real thing over time. And then we also had the contracts with Pick n Pay that really went south. In that time, prices were up by 30% to manufacture for them. They would give you 2.5% on price. So that became a real unfeasible and an unprofitable situation, during which I also knew that my own brand was declining because of less disposable income being spent on luxury goods. I mean, I'm not buying luxury goods. How can I expect other people to do the same? So in the beginning of 2024, was it? Yeah. I then decided to give Simply Granola just a pause, which then ended in a definite termination. But and I think the work that we did in Simply Granola and the trust that we had in the brand really just kind of spilled over to Oship. So a lot of my initial clients were also a lot of them moms, not necessarily, but they knew me from Simply Granola days. And there was a lot of confidence in, I think, me as a person and what we've done in the distribution space, irrespective of the fact that I was making granola and not doing logistics. So it was just, really a spillover, I think, from what I've built over there to Oship.
I love the fact that you mentioned that, and that we even at the same networking event that we were at this past Saturday, it was again mentioned how, you might, and so many women listening, I know, that are in a job that they're not particularly fulfilled. You might not know at the time, but that job is exactly what you need to be doing because it's going to filter into something else, or the networking that you're making and building those relationships can really filter into your dream job.
No, for sure. And I remember when I was sort of at the end of Simply Granola, the end of 2023, you're trying to pull all these tricks and you're trying to think what can I do to pivot within the business? And it was nothing was working. And I got so frustrated. But then a year later, looking back, I'm like, that is why nothing was working. And that is why Simply Granola had to come to an end, because Oship is probably where it was all heading. But, you hold on tight because it was also such a big part of your identity for such a long time.
Totally. And during those moments, especially when things are incredibly stressful or overwhelming, how do you personally reset or find, inverted commas, balance?
Overwhelm for me, it doesn't necessarily only come from work, but I get overwhelmed from a sensory point of view a lot. And I mean, in the warehouse even, there's forklifts going and there's tape dispensers going and there's stuff that's making a noise the entire time. So I know this might not be entirely what you're asking, but it is a massive part of my day-to-day. So I went to an occupational therapist that does adults earlier this year. And it was just absolutely fascinating for me to see the source of my overwhelm is most likely, and it is usually, my environment, and what I can do to counter that and to balance that. I don't necessarily get so overwhelmed by sheer volume of work that excites me, like, let me show you, I can kick your ass kind of vibe. But the surroundings really makes me feel like I want to run myself into a wall. So I test very high on an auditory sensory sensitivity and on a visual sensory sensitivity. So like, imagine you're walking into your house and there's crap on the counter, like, it drives me nuts. But going through that process, I realized a couple of things. The one is I don't have to apologize for being overwhelmed by my life. That's part of my makeup. And I also felt quite proud to have realized that without having physical tools at my disposal at the time, I've built in quite a number of tools to help me counterbalance that and like kind of pull myself towards myself. And then with that process, I think it was two things. But one, being able to communicate to the people around me what I need or where I struggle. So the girls at the warehouse know, like, if I close my office and I close the windows, it's because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed or like touched out, similar like you would with a baby. And at home, because my work then spills and my overwhelm from my day spills over into the home environment, like Thomas also, he knows and he understands. So the counter will be neat and the house will be smelling nice. Like, smell is a massive calming thing for me. So you will always find something smelling somewhere. So fragrance, and then small things like taking a quick shower from the shoulders down or just taking 5 minutes on my bed. And yeah, the overwhelm, I feel I manage with small little tools. I don't have to address my work environment as much.
That's amazing. And to also, isn't it crazy that like age 30, 37, 38 to only now also
Yes.
know these things.
Yes. I used to think something's wrong with me, but there's not.
And I think so many people can relate to that. I know they say as soon as you have a child, you learn so much, like so many things about yourself. But I never knew I was so OCD with my space. And and I work from home most of the time if I'm not going out for meetings. And I also go absolutely berserk, like leaving the house when I have to surrender to a certain extent. And we've got 2 dogs, but I have to have things clean because otherwise I feel so overwhelmed.
But it's fascinating if you look at like the science behind all of that. Like what happens in your brain when you see all the chaos around you and the inability that it causes to relax or to be productive or to calm down and chill out. Like, I can't, like,
yes.
Put a thing on me, like, otherwise I can't.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's why they say like a messy desk, messy mind.
Yeah,
appeals to me as well, or applies to me. Would you say you've got an addictive personality?
Yeah.
Do you?
I think that's why I will never try chemical drugs, because I will probably love it.
That's my reason too.
Right. Yes, I think I do. In certain things, I think it translates a little bit badly. Like the OCD. Yes. Now there is a clean enough version of life that should be acceptable, but it probably isn't.
And is it something that you picked up on an earlier age, or in your 20s, or more now?
I'm not sure. But my gut tells me, yes, highly addictive.
Yeah.
And I can see it in the way that I throw myself into certain, let's call it tasks or jobs or whatever. And I'm very addictive to certain parts of the process, let's say in business. Like, I like thinking about it, I like starting it, I like getting it up and running, but now I'm done, then I get bored. And then I get addicted to I want to have that new process again.
Yes, yeah.
Because that part is what really like fires me, and I'm addicted to that feeling, not necessarily the rest. You know what I'm saying?
I'm 100% the same. That's why at the beginning, 5 years ago, I used to consult for small businesses, and it it's similar to that exposure that you have now with, a new client coming in, and I used to absolutely love that beginning stage, but it's different when it's your own as well.
Yeah.
Also love that beginning process, and it like fires me up. I can easily not go to sleep early at night, be on my laptop and get into the spiral of addiction to work, and it's not, of course, always as healthy for my health. What would you say is your default self-sabotage?
I don't think I self-sabotage. I don't know if it's a result of therapy or knowing myself very well, or because it's the fact that I know that I have a really strong mind. And I'm not saying self-sabotaging is a result of a weaker mind, but I feel like I can talk myself through something, and not, go down the rabbit hole. But this is more I feel in general life. I think I self-sabotage more on a personal level. I know we talked about this on the way over, but I really struggle to ask for help. And again, not in the workplace. I love consulting fellow business owners and asking my team for help, anybody for help. I don't mind at all, but I can't ask help for myself on a personal level. And it's because I really fear that I will be disappointed. And I know that if I'm disappointed in that space, I won't be able to get over it, which I think is related to my love language, which is acts of service. So when you get hurt in, I think, your love language, you feel it so much more and so much more intense. So I get really devastated by the fact that somebody disappoints me in my personal life. So then I go into one-man island mode and I don't ask for help, and I just go psycho bitch, expecting people to read my mind and understand what I want instead of just opening my mouth and asking. And that really has, I think, like a negative effect throughout, because your partner cannot read your mind and they do not know what you want. You must just ask. And I don't want to be, I guess, vulnerable and weak enough to have to admit that I can just get the groceries from the car,
No, it's so true. Ash and I've spoken about it before as well. We also, myself, struggle in my personal life to ask for help, and I've got this. I've got a bit of I don't know if it's trauma from my younger days, or this built up in my ego, that I don't want to look weak. I don't want to feel like I need to depend on someone.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to pay my bill, or I don't want to owe something to someone. And Ash and I speak about it often, that when times get really tough, and we rely on each other lots to carry one another emotionally as well, aside from being business partners. But when things get really tough, we've both said that we actually almost have, unless we break down and cry in front of our partners, they won't think it's serious. Like during postpartum, there were times that I was telling Rocco, like, I'm not coping. But then I'd still go do the dishes, I'd still cook dinner, and I'd still do the washing. And then obviously he thinks I'm just, blasé, not coping, I've had a tough day.
Yeah.
The next day I'll say again, I'm not coping, but I still stand up and I operate and I manage like baby. Dogs do all the freaking tasks that I've set out to do. And unless I have a complete breakdown, like once postpartum, I can't even remember how many weeks, I was sitting in the car and I did not speak. And he was trying to speak to me and I was dead. I was literally had no energy, and I was so fatigued, wasn't sleeping. Alessio had these really horrific allergies, and it got really dark because my food got affected. I couldn't eat so many different things. And it took to that point for him to actually intervene and realize how serious it was. It's so bad. I think it's also it's a mom instinct of trying to keep it all together.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, let's say Rocco is away, you're going to keep it together anyway. There's not really that option in our minds. There is the option. We just choose not to exercise the option.
Totally. How has being an entrepreneur shaped the way you think about discipline and consistency? And how can moms apply that to their health?
Okay, so this one was an interesting one for me, because I don't think that being an entrepreneur I know that's not entirely the question. I don't think being an entrepreneur shapes my discipline and my consistency. I think my discipline and my consistency, weirdly enough, actually comes from my exercise and the training that I do. I've got a coach there that is incredible, also with the mental aspect of it. I did this trip with my dad. We cycled like 500 Ks from the Karoo to the coast, like I think 2 years ago. And I didn't get on my bike once before the trip. I just trained in the gym because that's all I could do. It's not safe enough for me to go. My I almost said my cycle, my schedule was all over. And it was insane for me to see on that trip. Like we did this one pass, Rooiberg Pass or something. It's horrible. Just like how I could hear the mental coaching coming through. Forget about the legs, like whatever. So I think I've practiced and really worked on mental dexterity through my training a lot. And I think, hang on a second. So I know myself really well, and I'm acutely aware of what goes on in my body, right? So I know that discipline and consistency is the basis of so many things. It's what we need in our jobs, our training, our nutrition, and our mental health. And I also know that these two things require us to rest and to switch off. So I'm going to start at the end and kind of work back from that. But I think what entrepreneurship has taught me is that it's never ending, right? And because of the never endingness, it requires discipline and consistency. Not in all those things. It requires discipline and consistency in my mothering. So I've realized that, I know that I must apply it in my training. I know that I need to apply it in my business. But because of the never endingness of entrepreneurship, I've really had to pivot a lot in my thinking. And I think this year was quite critical for me in that, and how I apply that same discipline and consistency in my mothering. And that was just really like an active switch I had to make in my mind. I think it was fueled by the divorce to a degree and some changes that happened this year. I just realized, like, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks that, I really only see my son for half of his life, and that then has an acute effect on how you approach the time. So I think it is really the answer to the question is just to apply the same dedication that we have to our jobs and figuring out how we're going to apply that as a mother. And like there's stupid things that I did, but I think it really made big shifts for me this year. Like if you take my phone and you open it, there's no apps on the home screen. There's no notifications coming through at all anymore on any of them. Like if you don't see it, you don't think about it, out of sight, out of mind. I also like built a profile on my phone. What do you call those things? Like, like airplane mode or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
So I built myself a profile for certain times of the day and it comes on automatically. And I don't even think about it. If you have to think about it, you're probably not going to want to go switch it on because what if somebody needs you? But nobody needs you that desperately, And when I get at home, I'll leave my phone in my bag and it doesn't come out unless I really need to until Jack goes to bed. So it was small shifts that just brought that same kind of dedication I take to my day and to bring that home and apply that to my mothering. And I can see from the small things that I've done, like a massive shift in my child as well.
There's so many things you're just subconsciously doing. I was so good at the beginning when I had Alessio and with breastfeeding. I said, I'll never have my phone while I breastfeed. But then I've sort of was breastfeeding for 14 months. And somewhere down the line, I was like, let me just quickly check an email, or let me also, because I'm literally half of my day, I've got help and the rest of the time I'm full on involved with him. But the notifications is a big thing. Also, it has to be out of sight. Phone needs to be packed away. Phone must not be next to me in bed. We've got some strict boundaries there that we try and...
I know, I need to apply one of those in my life, but I really like my phone in my bed.
But see, you're really good with, if you can do it where you're present with your son and your phone's in your handbag, that's massive. So many CEO Fit Moms that we work with, their jobs are so intense that they are so connected all of the time. And that's got a massive impact on your health. Something I didn't mention earlier when you were talking about environment and health, it's just interesting to see. When I was living in the city, used to, I mean, the things, and this is what I was going to touch on as well, is like how health has changed from our 20s to now, but things like green tea supplements, supplements that like help with water retention, all these things that I was exposed to when I lived in the city and tried. Tongue scraper.
You did that.
Yes. And also, of course, we ran wellness in the city, so we were gifted a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
But constantly looking for a fix to make my health better. And then I moved out of the city into the Platteland area. So friendship group, a hell of a lot smaller. So like I can count on my hand the people that I see there. The stress factor was taken away. My work changed as well. A new relationship that completely feeds me in another way. And then also, sadly, we don't have a family, but that also takes away a dynamic.
Yeah.
Whose family are we seeing this weekend? So, and my healthiest time has been the 3 years that I've been up there.
I can totally understand that. Totally.
Totally removed.
Yes. It's a pity we can't remove ourselves. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's why we have to implement things like not being around our screens, or not, because literally the days go by, and often I say to Rocco, there's something that happens on a Thursday, and I'm like, is it Thursday again? Like I know. Literally.
Don't you start measuring your life and how often, when you need to repurchase the wipes and the nappies?
Yes.
That's how I used to know that another month has gone by, because I need to purchase nappies and wet wipes.
No, it's scary.
Which is madness.
No, it's so crazy. What unhealthy habits do you feel like you've outgrown?
Unhealthy like health, or
like mentally or physically? So if it was something, like, I'm still impressed that you don't use any physical action as a self-sabotage, because I know so many, and myself included, I can get through phases where so in my head and emotional, I over snack. I've never been a binger per se, but my family knows me as a eater, and I know I can self-sabotage in that space. And in my 20s, something that I outgrew is I would very easily, after, especially in London, have such a tough week and go, can't wait, it's Thursday, it's bar night, I'm going to have drinks, because first of all, it's free drinks, so I'm going to have more than I need to. And then also going out with friends, because it's almost the weekend and you want to, inverted commas, unwind.
Yeah.
And like that was a form of unhealthy habits, this cycle that I was always in.
I think my unhealthy habits maybe have a different twist, and I think they definitely only happened over the last couple of years, probably in phases that you're really forced to grow. But I think an unhealthy habit that I had was not being able to communicate in my relationships, in my friendships, relationships specifically. I realized I had no clue how much I internalize and how much I withdraw. So that is something that I became very aware of, that I've definitely overcome, which was a bit of a challenge. It still is sometimes a challenge for me to get out of my mind and to speak my mind. The not asking for help bit. And then another one, I feel there's two other ones. Waiting before I speak. It has never been more true for me the last 3 to 4 years. I used to be very op my perkie, and I've just realized that waiting before you speak actually can move mountains. Damn, what was the other one? Oh, I don't think it depends, but I used to, with the same high standard I hold myself to, I used to hold myself to quite a high standard with like the number of times I get to train. And I used to allow that to define me. And to have shifted this year for a number of reasons, but I had to shift a little bit away from, like, let's say, training 6 days a week, because I need that for my mind. But to not feel like such a failure, or to not be so defined, by the number of times you get to do X, or the number of times that you prep your meals, or the number of times that you blah, I am doing my best. And I should be proud enough of myself for giving my best, whatever that is, to move through life in a phase that you constantly feel like you're underperforming for yourself, and it's not even the truth. So it took a lot of mental work for me to get okay with what I can give myself in certain areas. But that was a massive shift for me.
And would you say, look, I know we speak about therapy a lot. Would you say one of the best things that came from your divorce was more self growth and realizing what you want in life?
Yes. I think there's a couple of things that came out of divorce, but it was a shockingly unnerving process, I think, to be able to look yourself in the mirror and to say, okay, cool, this is what society wants for me, thinks of me, expects of me, and then to look in the mirror and to be like, but this person that's staring back at me is super unhappy. And to decide, I clearly remember having a conversation with my mom and my dad, and bless them. My father thinks like a man and my mother thinks like a mother. So it's very interesting and I often, even now, I go to them with issues that stems from the divorce, and it's fascinating to hear their very different views on thinking. Anyway, I was saying something about, then what do I do, Dad? Do I choose Jack's dad and Jack? Or do I choose myself? But what if I choose them? And then my mom kind of finished my sentence and she said, yeah, and then she dies on the inside. And you feel like you're coming out of your skin, when you do something that seems so selfish, to choose yourself and to be like, okay, I have the perfect life. I have the perfect everything. But me and my heart is super unhappy. And to step away and to be bold enough and brave enough to choose me. And now after the divorce, I've grown in ways that I've never thought possible. And I actually took myself away for a weekend, like 2-3 weeks ago, because also I was at my end and overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, peace out, Eitan. I need to get away. And I spent a lot of time that weekend is doing a bunch of things, but amongst others, looking at my divorce. And I think we get gaslighted a lot in a process like that. I'm not saying just women by men. I think it can go both ways. But somewhere along the line, I lost the truth of my divorce because I was left to feel like this was my decision and this was something I chose and this was bad for all of us. And anything that's bad or uncomfortable now is a result of my choosing. But then I went through, I kind of backtracked and I'm like, no, there were two people here, two people that had to work to make it work, two people that had to buy into the fact that we're in trouble. And I was saying for 3 years, I think we need help, but apparently we didn't, and I think it was liberating for me in that time to realize that there were so many truths that I'd forgotten, and to just kind of bring myself back to a baseline. And I made a list of like, what's the good things that came out of the divorce and what are the not so great things that came out of the divorce. And the good so far outweighs the bad. It's not what anyone would have chosen for themselves necessarily. Nobody goes to stand in front of a church and say, I do, wishing or wanting or waiting for it to be broken up. Like, no, none of us want that. But if I look now, the growth that I've had in myself, the life that my son has, the 150% he gets from myself and from his dad, it's phenomenal. Like,
I also, when I went through the process myself, I also said that divorce is something I would never wish it upon my own enemies. And I think the toughest part from just, which I can relate to, is that so many people are involved. It's not just a breakup of, you've got a son involved as well. I don't. So I don't have to speak to my ex, and it's been 10 years since my divorce. Yeah,
madness.
Crazy. But at the time, it was incredibly traumatic because it was friends, it was family, both Italian families, so very intertwined.
Very vocal.
Yes, against religion. So there's that debate as well. And so much shame that was surrounded with that title. And now it's something I very comfortably can talk about with friends and with people off camera. It's, for me, it's still a little bit awkward to touch upon it on camera, just because that other person isn't here to defend themselves and haven't told the true, entire story. But yeah, it was one of the periods of my life that I've grown tremendously, and then ended up with a partner who is 100% perfect for me and like aligned with me and the opposite to what I had. And you never think that that's possible. And
no, for sure you don't.
No, and the funny thing as well is like Rocco comes from a very Afrikaans traditional upbringing, and our first few dates always had to bring up divorce. Why did it happen? Will it happen again? Like, go into detail. It was so against anything he ever thought,
it would be true for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that life? Okay, a little bit about alcohol. Has it changed? When did you start drinking alcohol? Was it also like high school days?
Yeah.
Quite intertwined into your social life back in your younger days.
Yeah, and definitely experimenting prior to when I should have been.
I know now that like so many of my friends' kids and even my nieces are getting closer to 13, 14, 15.
Oh, hell no, that's a bit young.
It's crazy. Oh, did you not drink at that age?
I don't know. No,
I think we were about 14, 15.
Oh,
that's how crazy it is. And now you look at these little young, innocent beings. And
I will kill Jack.
I know, it's crazy. But also, well, I think you can be... there's a little bit of peace of mind with how times have changed and how Gen Z as well.
Maybe drink less than us.
Apparently so, yes. A lot of my friends who are in their 40s say that at work functions, the Gen Z crowd aren't drinking. They're just way more
fascinating,
into journaling, know their emotions, don't feel pressurized to drink. Whereas us at a work occasion, you drank to fit in, as bad as that sounds, or to hold a conversation with your senior. How has alcohol changed within in your more recent years?
I think it was never a massive thing in my life. If it's there, it's great. If it's not, it's not. But I think like most adults, you love a good glass of red wine. You love a white wine sundae. Who does not love a whiskey, But I think it changed significantly when Jack was born. And then you're like, okay, but I cannot do this with a hangover at all. So I think there for me, going beyond what I know to be my limit, which is anyway not a lot, I think that changed for me a lot. And then I also changed my training quite a bit in the last, let's say, 4 years. And then I also just realized it's really not serving me at all in that space. And now I drink so little that when I have like 2 glasses, not even one big glass of red wine, will give me a babbelas for 2 days, which irks me beyond belief. So if I don't have to drink ever again, I won't. But also, listen, a whiskey sour is basically an egg white smoothie, which you can have at 10 a.m. in the morning, especially on holiday. So that I do buy into a lot.
Yeah, I must say my relationship with alcohol has changed tremendously. Again, also since having a child, since moving out of the city and not being as social. Of course, that's become easier. And then I went on this whole like fear of geriatric ovaries and wanting to have a child, and then decided for 6 months I'm really going to look after my health. And one of the things was to try give up alcohol. And it was really tough for me.
Oh, really?
Really, really hard.
And when you introduced it back, did you feel...
No, now I feel the power of being able to not drink, and I don't care if someone goes,
drink any.
Yeah, they used to trigger me so often that at the beginning I was it's the people pleaser. I was so conscious of, is someone going to ask me why am I not drinking all the time? Oh, are you pregnant? And then I actually started getting to a point where I'm like, that's really personal question, and very rude, because what if we are trying and I'm not pregnant? But no, my relationship's completely changed. But I started drinking because I wasn't very confident and I was insecure, and I knew in my 20s by drinking I'd have the confidence, especially in work, because I was thrown into very high pressure work circumstances from a young age, or for me it was very intense. It was very against my personality, and you had to be social. You had to go out and network and be at events. And
sounds awful.
It was very overwhelming at the time, and alcohol played a part in making it easier, and socializing and being more confident, and the same in a social situation. And even when I chat to the CEO Fit Mom ladies that we coach, alcohol is also intertwined into the work that they do. And it's so interesting to see how many of them struggle to not drink in social circumstances because of maybe fear of, not fitting in.
I was about to say the societal expectation when it comes to booze, especially for our generation, still is massive. Whether you wanted to admit it or not, it's massive.
Totally.
Funny, like with the Gen Zs, they don't have that, which I think is fascinating. But for us, if you don't drink, you're weird.
Yeah.
know?
I've got lots of friends that say, no, that person doesn't drink, so I don't trust them.
Huh?
I know. No, I know it's a bit of a joke, but it's also a fact of it. It's an insecurity probably because a lot of people can't see themselves being able to not drink.
Yeah.
And now the crazy thing is that I'm in Potchefstroom. My husband's in the liquor industry. Alcohol is surrounded by every single event in the Platteland. Like, people drink, and it's not, clean tequila because it's so-called healthier for your gut. It is brandewijn, beer, pink shots, blue shots. I mean, exposed to all of it.
Yeah.
And I just have found the power in being able to say no and the next day having such a good day and everyone else is hungover. And then the more I did it, the more I got into the habit of realizing I don't need alcohol for social occasions. I'm able to smash my goals the next day. And I also got to a point where I was sick of how alcohol took way more from me than it gave me.
Yeah, for sure.
So that whole saying of stealing tomorrow's happiness, it couldn't be like more true.
Yeah.
And at a lot of times felt very depressed after drinking alcohol. So yeah, my consumption's gone down. I do still have my favorite drinks now and then, but it's nothing to the extent that I used to.
Yeah.
And then a healthy supplement that you swear by?
Definitely Kiko's pre and probiotic.
Yes.
Like the last couple of years, I've wreaked havoc on my gut, and it was so bad at a point. So last year, August, I think just after finally getting divorced in court and lots of legal drama, I think my gut was at an all-time low. So I started introducing Kiko Vitals then, and it was definitely the single. What am I trying to say?
Yes.
Single-handedly the thing that has made the biggest difference in my gut. And then also now having worked with the integrative doctor to do a lot of bloods and stool. Oh my word! Can we have a moment? Never thought I was going to do that in my lifetime. So bizarre. Anyway, I know we've talked about slow methylation and the hormone assist, which should be like methylation assist. So I think it's been about 4 months with the methylation support, and that in combination with Kiko Vitals, the pre and probiotic. I think those two definitely have been game changers for me.
And what was the first sign that you knew that it was your gut that was screaming for help?
Because I've always had a very fast metabolism, and if I don't go to the bathroom at least 4 times a day, I'm going to get very claustrophobic because this is not normal. And then I realized my body has come sort of to a complete stop. And then last year, December, after having started Kiko in about, let's say, August, September, I realized at least my metabolism has returned to normal, and it was because also I was on holiday. So then I realized again the impact of stress on my gut, but mostly I think my metabolism and how it has affected that, because I've been always very predictable, very regular. Love a poop conversation. I can talk about it for days.
What were those tests like? Which ones did you do? Which stool tests did you do?
No, don't ask me. I don't know.
No, but what was the process? Was it through this integrative doctor?
Yes, okay. Yeah. Do we have to talk about the process? No.
No. I'm joking. No, we definitely don't. But so they did those tests, and then he or she.
It was a she.
She came back with the results of saying your gut is crying for help.
Yes. And also weird things. Like, I thought because I eat mainly vegetarian that my iron levels would be quite low, but it's not. My iron stores were actually quite full. But then other things like vitamin D, I'm trying to think now. I haven't gotten all of that up top in my mind. But it was the methylation, vitamin D that stood out for me, pre and probiotic. But not the things that I suspected would have been issues. Iron being one of them, definitely.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
My body definitely does struggle with the detoxing. I don't do well with sugar at all. And I know dairy, we spoke about
but
dairies.
Dairy. I have not cut out sugar.
I reckon you can do better with sugar. I just really can't. I feel horrible. I feel like hungover. I still do have it, and old default mode. Like I'm now staying with my folks while in Cape Town, and they love sugar.
And Mum has a jar of treats on the counter, most probably.
She's got a box above the stuff. Literally a blue box, and there's always something in. And if I'm like wound up from a day and I'm not in my own comforts, etc., but I always don't. Yeah, I don't feel great when it comes to sugar. Anyways, mom guilt, what we all feel. How do you navigate that tension between business, family, and self? You seem to have really good, healthy boundaries, though.
Well, I mean, if you think mom guilt is bad, I think the divorce has amplified that. But you know what? I'm very pragmatic, and I'm very structured in my mind, and I'm very strong in my mind. So I try to rationalize that out for myself. Like if I know, going back to what we spoke about earlier, if I know that I am present and I'm there and I've given my 150% to Jack in the moments that I saw him, then I know that, I know this logically, right? That mom guilt it's stupid in this point because I have given everything that I had. So I do feel that. I mean, wait till you have to drop your child at childcare and he screams and clings and they have to tear him off you. And then you feel like such an asshole, driving away. And you're going to get nothing done that first day. Mark my words. You sit in your car and you wait for 12 o'clock. But I think two things. The one is that to a degree, most of the mom guilt, right, stems from what we want to do for ourselves. And our kids must also see that. They must see that we are not just mom. I don't think there's anything wrong with just wanting to be mom, but I'm not like that. I am myself, and I am a partner, and I'm a sister, and I'm a daughter, and I am a mother, and I want to be all of those things. And my child needs to see that. So on the one hand, mom guilt reminds me that Jack also needs to see that life is about more than just catering to his every whim. And then on the other hand, I try to just bring in like a really strong mental aspect to it. And then I can switch off and switch gears. It's the same like when I'm super sad. I will be distraught and then I'll have my moments and then I'll talk about like which jelly bean I'm going to eat next, So then I move on. So I've always had the ability to shift gears quite quickly.
Sure, that's impressive. Have you always been so refreshingly self-assured?
I don't know, maybe, but wait, sorry, no, that sounds so arrogant.
You're allowed to say that.
If I look at Jack, I see a lot of myself in him. I was always a very confident child, and I would always go make a friend and like walk up to the waiter, and it's things that I see in him. He's a super confident boy. But I also know that now. Where were we? Oh, it was at the event. Like I couldn't even go dish myself a plate of food. Like I was too shy, So in certain instances, I'm really not. But when it comes to me and myself, and I think, and this has been a profound thing in my life, and I love it. I also love this part of getting older. I love this part of being wiser as we age. But I have spent a lot of time in therapy to really get to know myself. And I know myself intimately, and I'm acutely aware of not just who I am, but also my body and what goes on in my body. But for the sake of this question, I think when you know yourself, the good parts and the bad parts, right? Think about it. So let's say you always joke about how crap you are at spelling. Now, if this was something that you haven't owned for yourself and somebody points out a spelling mistake on your stories, you would let that define you, right?
Totally.
But now you just laugh it off because you've accepted that as a truth for yourself and you've embraced it.
Yes.
And when you know yourself intimately, your good parts and your bad parts, life is not going to come and surprise you with a bad thing that you're not willing to accept about it. I know those bad things about me. I'm okay with those. I can work on them or I can just accept them. And then the same is for our strong parts. And I am very confident in what I have to offer. And I know what I'm worth, and I know the level of respect that I want to be treated with, the same that I give to the people that I encounter on a daily basis. And why should I settle for less when I've spent so much time to really bring my best to my world? And I expect the same from the people around me. So I don't have to take a step back for what I'm bringing to the table, because I know that I'm worth it.
That's such a brilliant answer. I also feel very self-assured, but I'll be honest with you, it's post-divorce. I wasn't like this in my 20s. I built my way up to where I am, of course, now, and I've got really good support and love and reassurance that I also get externally. But my self-love and self-acceptance and really literally so much confidence in things I never thought I'd be confident in. I really didn't have that pre-divorce.
Yeah, but also 10 years ago, so that was pre-30s. And I think the 30s, especially for women, I don't know about boys, but I think for us, it's a massive turning point. That's why I also say, like, don't get married before you're 30 if you don't have to, you know, because you don't know yourself. You haven't grown and matured into who you are. Like a large majority of us, I think, only really get to know ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Past 30.
I got divorced at 29, turning 30. That shift.
That must have been a massive time in your life.
It was huge. And you can only think of the trajectory of my social life when that happened, because I was part of the crowd that got married younger, and then you reconnect with all your single friends at 30, and you can only imagine how wild that.
Yeah, I was about to say wild.
So I had an amazing few years then, but also just so it was like this self-acceptance that I actually wish I had in my younger days, to be honest.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to moms who pour everything into their careers but struggle to channel that energy into their health? And again, this is something I see all the time. The ladies that we work with, they are so driven, and it's so clear that if they take that ambition and that drive that they put into their careers and they just shift it, or not shift, they just take parts of it and put it towards their own well-being, you know, they would be so confident in their bodies, be healthy, have a much different lifestyle. But
I don't know if I have a very insightful or life-changing answer to this, but I think a lot of us would ideally pour everything we have into our businesses, because that's the part that makes you externally feel more validated. And it's almost like that cortisol spike, you know, that you're chasing. Whereas, do you really get that in mothering? Yeah, no, you know, not so often. But I try to kind of flip the script a little bit on this, and I ask myself, what do I want Jack to remember when he thinks back to me in his early formative years, right? You know, what will he remember? Will he remember me only being with my phone in my face, or my nose in my laptop, or coming home late, or not being able to drive him to school? And I mean, these are really privileged things as well. I'm acutely aware of that. But if you are in the position to make changes, then ask yourself, what will your child remember? And, you know, we were in Cape Town on the weekend, and we were on the prom, and there was a playground, and, you know, those outdoor gyms, and Jack saw it and he ran to it, and he's like, Mom, here's a gym, you can train. So I love that he knows that I love to train, and he comes with me to work because I want him to see what it looks like to work. And he, oh my word, the other day we were doing something, was packaging things, and he was getting pocket money, you know, helping me work. So to me, I don't know, the one part, I think I try and shape that by looking at it through my child's lens. And then on the other hand, I try to remind myself that if I'm only working and dedicated to this thing that I'm building, which takes all your time and all your mental capacity most of the time, right? Something's got to give. And then the question is for me, like, what am I okay with that thing being? Am I okay with the thing that's kind of the ball that's being dropped being my child? Am I okay for that ball to be dropped to be my relationship? Am I okay for that to be my health? Like, which parts of it is okay for me? And if there's an answer on one of those ends that I'm like, this is not okay for me, then you like something's got to give, and you have to make some shifts. I thought about this when I read the question, but now I can't remember who it was. But I'm sure you've read about the power pause.
Yes.
And it's kind of that mentality, and it's not the same thing, but applying that to the same scenario. Are you willing to pause a little bit somewhere to apply that in a personal capacity? Does that make sense?
Brilliant answer. Yes, 100%. I just also think that, my views have changed so much since becoming a mom, but from a physical point of view, I love the mental side of it, but the physical point of view, I just really want to be strong to keep up with my bloody 15-month-old who's already is so, I really, confession, I really wanted a boy, and so did Rocco. And when we had him, and it was a surprise, we didn't know what we were having until birth. And I just did not know that the busyness would start from one, like that. Launching himself off couches at 1. I thought it started at 2. So I am caught off guard. But physically, I just want to be so strong and be able to keep up with him and be healthy for our family. Ending off, what is the most money you've spent on a health trained gadget or experience? And would you say it's worth it?
No, it's never worth it. The other day, went off my meds, went back onto my meds, and I think it was in a very dark period in between where I felt not great in my training. And I'm lying in bed at night, and I woke up the next morning and I saw like I've bought into 4 fitness apps. I'm like, what the actual, like what? And I think I've spent thousands, tens of thousands on bikini body guides and
really
stronger. Yes,
but the marketing.
You know what the joke is? I never do them.
Yes.
I buy them and I never do them.
I've got a friend who does exactly the same.
And the bigger joke is then you're like, oh, this looks great. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna start tomorrow. You open the app and you're like, this is not revolutionary enough to change me.
100%, but the marketing was so good.
The marketing
just spoke to our pain points, which it always does.
And then I'm just acutely aware of the fact that I know everything that I need to be consistent, to make good choices, to be healthy, to be strong. So no, it's never worth it.
That is so funny. That was, but something that you spent a lot of money on that was worth it was definitely therapy when it comes to health.
Yes, I will spend money on therapy for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I'm also happy to do that. Thank you so much for today and the insightful conversations and all the wisdom you've shared. I know that a lot of listeners are going to absolutely love this episode. So
thanks, Marissa. It is great to be back.
Pleasure. Cheers. Thanks for listening to the Fit Mom podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to us if you could subscribe, rate, and share this episode with a fellow ambitious fit mom. Chat soon.